The wedding was supposed to be the event of the season, at least according to Karen. She had reserved the HOA clubhouse, plastered the neighborhood with invitations, and paraded around like a queen announcing her coronation. The only problem? My lake cabin sat right across the water, and apparently, my life was supposed to stop existing for the duration of her daughter's special day. The trouble started a week before the wedding. Karen came striding up my drive in a pastel blazer and oversized sunglasses, her phone already recording. "We're going to need absolute quiet during the ceremony," she said without preamble. "No mowing, no hammering, no dogs barking, no boats on the lake. The minister can't be distracted, and the guests need serenity." I blinked at her. "Karen, I live here. This is my property. I don't schedule my life around your events." She pursed her lips. "You'll cooperate, or you'll face consequences." And with that, she spun on her heel and marched away, certain her word was law. I could have ignored her, but her smugness lit a spark in me. If she wanted quiet, she was going to learn what noise really meant. On the morning of the wedding, I woke before dawn. The chainsaw sat gleaming on the porch, freshly sharpened. I hauled it to the giant oak by the cabin and started it at exactly 11:59 a.m. 1 minute before the ceremony was scheduled to begin across the lake. The sound ripped through the air like thunder. Birds scattered from the treetops. Sawdust rained as I began trimming massive limbs, letting them crash down one by one. Each impact sent echoes bouncing off the water. By the time the minister cleared his throat to begin, my chainsaw was roaring at full throttle. Guests across the water squirmed in their chairs. The bride shot nervous glances toward the trees. Karen, red-faced and sweating in her pastel finery, stormed to the edge of the dock and started waving her arms like a frantic traffic cop. "Turn it off! Turn it off right now!" she shrieked, her voice barely carrying over the saw. I pretended not to hear. I guided another branch down with precision, letting it land with a crash that sent ripples skimming across the lake. Guests began muttering. A few covered their ears. The violinist set down his bow. The minister tried to push forward, but every sentence was drowned by the mechanical snarl of my saw. Finally, Karen couldn't take it. She stomped into a golf cart, drove around the lake, and stormed up my drive like a woman possessed. "You are ruining my daughter's wedding," she screamed. I killed the chainsaw and set it down slowly. "Karen, I'm just doing my regular maintenance. You told me not to make noise, but I checked county ordinances. Noon is a perfectly legal time to work. You don't control my property." Her eyes bulged. "You're doing this on purpose." I smiled. "Oh, you noticed?" That broke her. She let out a strangled scream, stomped her heels into the gravel, and shouted into her phone for the police. The deputy who arrived 20 minutes later couldn't stop chuckling. He knew me, and he knew Karen. "Sir," he said, keeping a straight face, "this lady says you're disturbing a private wedding." I handed him the ordinance printout. "Chainsawing trees at noon is perfectly legal. I'm on my property, minding my business." Karen tried to cut in. "It's harassment. He's targeting me." The deputy held up a hand. "Ma'am, you don't own his property. You don't get to dictate what he does here." Then he leaned in just enough so only she and I could hear. "And between you and me, half the department's betting on how long before someone files to recall you from the HOA board." Karen's face twisted. She spun away, humiliated, and stomped back to her wedding, where the ceremony was already unraveling. Guests were restless. The bride was near tears. And just as Karen tried to salvage dignity, I fired up the chainsaw again. The sound ripped across the water like a punchline. By the time the reception ended, Karen's daughter had fled in embarrassment. Several neighbors who attended the wedding quietly told me later they thought Karen's demands were outrageous, and they were secretly glad someone had put her in her place. The best part? A week later, I received a letter from the HOA board. Not a threat, but an apology. They distanced themselves from Karen's stunt and assured me she had acted without board approval. Apparently, several members were tired of her antics. Karen had wanted silence, control, and admiration. Instead, She got chaos, humiliation, and whispers of a recall. And me? I got a pile of fresh firewood, and the sweetest sound of all, Karen's wedding day, forever remembered as the Chainsaw Symphony.